The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
The METUS Tech Show.
All right, so Nick, what exactly is poi?
All right, so poi is it's a starch. It's basically pounded taro root. So if you're familiar with the plant, sometimes you see this plant on the mainland. Some people call it elephant ears. It's like a big, I don't know how to describe it, but it's got big leaves. Anyway, the plant taro is related to that elephant ear. It's not the same exact thing. But anyway, so they take this plant, they grow it in basically a flooded field, and you get these it's basically a root vegetable. So they take the root, you can kind of think of it like a potato, right? They take that root out and then they pound it and mix it with water and strain it, and I think nowadays they boil it also, and so you end up with this kind of purplish, I mean, it looks, I don't want to do it a disservice because I love eating it, but if you look at it, yeah, it looks like pudding. It's basically a starch. It's like you would have bread or rice with a meal. Out here, fish and poi is pretty popular, or poke, ahi poke, tuna. You would have a bowl of cubed up ahi, raw ahi, and on the side you'd have a bowl of poi. The thing is that you just eat the fish and poi together. Back in the old days, they did it with their fingers. Nowadays we use spoons, but yeah, it's really good stuff. It takes a while to, you look at it and you're like, wait, I don't know about that stuff. It's actually good. I enjoy it.
So would you say it's the consistency of like mashed potatoes?
Maybe a little more, slightly more runny than that. It's got a silky kind of a texture, but some people like it more watery. Some people like it more thick. Some people even, they'll let it sit out for a few days and kind of ferment a little bit, and it'll get a little bit of a sour taste. I actually enjoy that. It's different for sure, but if you give it a chance, it's not bad. It's good.
So taste again, what does it taste like?
Boy, that's a tough one. If you let it sit for a while, for a few days, and it'll kind of get a little bit of a sour kind of a thing to it. I can't really say. I mean, it's like asking, what does white rice taste like?
Okay. All right.
It's like rice.
Fair enough.
I'll eat just about anything, but I'm not a fan of eating something that I have to let sit around for a few days. It just doesn't sound like a good idea. What about a luau? Have you ever been to a traditional Hawaiian luau? Is that they still do that? Is that just a touristy thing, or do the locals do that?
Yes, the locals do it. I haven't been to a bunch of them, but I've been to a few, and yeah, it's basically just a get together, a party, and traditionally you'll have a roasted pig that you put in what's called an imu. Basically, they take the whole pig and they dig a big hole, and you've got maybe kiawe wood or some other type of, wood that you burn in the bottom of there. And typically hopefully I'm getting this right, typically they'll wrap the pig in like banana leaves and kind of let it smoke or sit.
I think you're right. Yeah, that's
right.
So, I've seen it anyway.
And one more Hawaiian food question. Is Hawaiian pizza even a thing on the island of Hawaii? Because I think it's disgusting. It should be illegal. People should be drawn and quartered for putting pineapple on pizza.
It is kind of a thing. I wouldn't say it's as popular as it's made out to be in movies and other things. But yeah, people do eat pineapple in the pizza out here, probably a little more than what they do on the mainland. My son absolutely loves it. He always requests pineapple on his pizza, and it's a thing for sure. Yeah.
Right. Actually, I do have one more food question. I've heard there's a lot of Portuguese in Hawaii, and that the only McDonald's in the world that does not have an egg McMuffin is in Hawaii, and they have linguiça and eggs, or chorizo and eggs. Is that true?
So speaking of with the Portuguese thing, they do sell Portuguese sausage at the McDonald's out here, which Portuguese sausage is kind of a thing in Hawaii. It's, I don't know if you know what Portuguese sausage is. Basically sausage. Oh, yeah. I think it maybe has slightly higher fat content than other sausages. As far as the chorizo and linguiça thing, I haven't seen that, but maybe I haven't been going to the right McDonald's. Of course, I don't eat at McDonald's that often.
That's basically Portuguese sausage.
Yeah.
Linguiça chorizo. So Paul and I are Portuguese, and our our veins are all clogged with the grease from
Yeah.
Portuguese sausage. So
Yeah. Anyway, welcome everybody to the METUS Tech Show. My name is Paul Shavs. I'm here in studio with Steve Pimentel. Steve, say hi.
hey, what's up, everybody?
Joining us remote is Bryn Raptor. Bryn, say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
And very special guest today, Nick. I hope I pronounced your name right. Nick Garciano from Hawaii.
Wait a minute, I thought it was Nick certified.
That's what his email says. and he should be certified.
And right now
saying that.
on this Teams meeting, it says Nick unverified.
Yeah, unverified. He's certified and unverified. He can't decide. He's bipolar. So Nick is what we call our super fan. Nick was the first one to email us. In fact, he emails us more than everyone else combined put together. So we decided, you know what? Let's get him on the show because I personally have made fun of him, and I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to apologize for it.
You, Paul? I don't believe it.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Just once in a while. So, Nick, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Make sure I got your name right. Tell us who you work for, and then we'll go from there.
My name is Nick Garziano. I work for Certified Air Conditioning here on the island of Maui. Been in the HVAC trade for about 18 years, 42 years old, about to be 43 in a few days. Was in the Navy for 4 years. Yeah, just enjoy everything Mitsubishi. It's kind of my passion. So, yeah.
So you're in the Navy, and I'm assuming you were stationed in Hawaii and just stayed there then.
Yeah, so I got stationed at Pearl Harbor, was here on the island of Oahu, one island over. Ended up meeting my wife over there, and she's from Maui. She's a Maui girl, born and raised. She said, "You're coming back home with me," and I said, "Okay."
Yeah, once they say that, you don't have a choice.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Hawaii, of all places. So how did you? I want to know how did you hear about the METUS Tech Show?
So I was at the Advanced City Multi Training course in Houston back in December of 2022.
Okay.
And my instructor, he actually had mentioned it in class. And the first day of class is a 2-day course, right? And so we finished the class, and immediately I went back to my hotel room, and I'm like, I got to find this. Like, what is this? Like, what, you know?
Nice.
And I found it, and I think you guys had put out probably maybe two episodes by that point, or maybe three. Yeah, I think 3 episodes. And I listened to them, and I was just like, oh my God, I was so hooked. It was everything that I had ever hoped for. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, the first episode was all about training, that was the whole thing there, which was cool because I was in the middle of an actual class, city multi class. Yeah. And just really cool. So, yeah.
And we really didn't know what the hell we were doing when we started this. We still don't.
No, yeah. But we're still figuring it out.
But yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear, Nick.
So, Nick, does your boss know that you're taking this time, because it's a 6-hour difference, so you're about to start your work day, but does your boss know that you're doing this?
He does. Yeah. I made him aware about a week ago, and maybe about a week ago, and he was all for it. We're about the same age, so we started in the trade together actually at another company. So yeah, he's always been supportive of my passion for Mitsubishi. We're a not exclusively Mitsubishi company, but it's about probably 80%, 90% of what we sell. And so I'm really appreciative that he supports my endeavors in, becoming a better technician and just learning everything I can about Mitsubishi products.
So, Nick, being a HVAC tech in Hawaii, what is that like? What kind of equipment are you normally working on when it comes to Mitsubishi, or maybe even not Mitsubishi? What's your day normally like?
Okay. I'm a senior service technician at our company. We have about a small to medium-sized company. Right now, I'm in the middle of I'm kind of transitioning to a hybrid role. So I'm in the field about half the time and in the office a little bit too, doing proposals and whatnot. So anyway, I start my day typically around 7 o'clock. My workday starts, usually gather materials at the office, at the shop, and then I'll head out to my first call around 8. As far as what we work on, a lot of M series stuff, not so much P series. So I might have 2 or 3 service calls for the day, trouble calls, diagnostics, and then maybe a maintenance or 2, although I'm transitioning away from maintenances nowadays. I am what my coworkers call kind of the city multi guru, the Mitsubishi guru. So I'm the one, getting sent out to all the Mitsubishi calls that nobody else can figure out. We've got a lot of high-end clientele out here, a lot of big custom homes that, have Y series city multi and at least 4 homes, residential homes, Y series stuff, believe it or not. Yeah, I mean, so I'll go out and troubleshoot those systems and do all kinds of stuff.
That's becoming more popular up this way as well. 3-phase homes and larger equipment, city multi-equipment going into these larger square footage homes. What I was going to ask you, Nick, is there basements in these homes, or is it crawl spaces, attics? Talk a little bit about that.
So most of the equipment is going to be, and as far as air handlers go, if it's ducted equipment, it's going to be an attic. There are some homes that have maybe a home that's built on the side of a hill or something where it's got a lower floor that you could kind of call a basement. You might have some equipment in those sort of spaces, but I'd say 90% of the stuff is going to be an attic. I don't know if it's just out here or if it's everywhere these days, but the attics out here can be extremely tight, extremely small. You're doing some shimmying and crawling like you've never done before. Basements aren't so much of a thing out here. Yeah, most of the stuff's in attic spaces.
Now, being from New England, and I've crawled through my share of attics and dealt with the heat. How do you do it in Hawaii?
That's a good topic to bring up, because I've got a story about that. Yeah, staying hydrated is the number one thing, right? I mean, you want to drink a bunch of water before you get out there. Stay away from those energy drinks. Yeah, just got to stay hydrated. And I tell you, like talking about hot attic, I was in an attic about 5 years ago. There's a part of the island called Lahaina, and you guys have probably heard it. It's been in the news recently. There was a big fire there. Lahaina gets pretty hot. In fact, I think the word Lahaina actually means brutal sun or cruel sun. I was in an attic there about 5 years ago, and it was so hot I could barely breathe. And I happened to have a pocket thermometer, right? So I set it up on one of the trusses or one of the 2x4s, and I watched it. It got up to 142 degrees.
Jeez.
And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't stay up there for longer than 5 minutes at a time. I had to get out. I mean, because it was like you were breathing fire, like you were breathing that hot air going in your lungs. But but that's pretty rare. I mean, but attics can be pretty brutal. I mean, typically most of them, run around out here anyway, maybe 120 degrees. But stay hydrated. That's the big thing.
One company that I worked for, we were so busy with attic work, and it got to the point where I had to take over the scheduling at these houses. And I told my boss, I said, listen, we need to get into these houses at 6 a.m. And he's like, you can't go to someone's house at 6 a.m. I said, listen, I will talk to the customer and see if it's okay with them. We'll get in there at 6 a.m. and we'll get the hell out of there at noon. Yeah. And before it really gets hot in that attic. And I'll tell you what, most of the time, the customers would have no problem with us coming in, starting early, leaving early. And I was in charge of the line sets. I was in charge of running the thermostat wire, the condensate, just the mechanical side where they had the duct guys that would come in, and they loved me because I would come in the morning and I would pipe that air handler up to the outdoor unit. The electrician would have it wired, and I'd fire that unit up with no ductwork on it in the attic. And they were like, oh my God, you're the best. And just let that thing run while they were up there. So you got to be resourceful.
I was just about to say the same thing. We did that too. We made it a priority. We get there early, finish at 1. But the priority was to get the air handler connected and running. And the duct guys would be like, oh, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah.
We do a lot of coil change outs out here because our cooling season is year round. Evaporator coils just take a beating, right? I mean, they're just constantly sitting in that, moisture. And so when I do have coil change outs, I always request, hey, let's schedule that for first call of the day. Please don't schedule that for 12 to 4.
Yeah. A lot of the customers were already gone to work or getting ready to go to work at that time. And if they were okay, most of them were okay with it. I believe me, my boss was floored. He was like, man, I can't believe you're getting in these houses at that time. And it was an early day for the guys, starting early like that. It was great.
All right, Nick. So before we get into the technical stuff, I just want to ask one more question. I'm kind of just curious. Is it typical for an HVAC guy in the state of Hawaii to go from island to island, or do they typically stay on the one island?
So it's pretty rare to go from island to island. Here on Maui, we've got actually 3 islands in the county of Maui: Maui, Lanai, and Molokai. We've also got Kaho'olawe, but that's an uninhabited island. We do occasionally go to the island of Lanai. We've got a couple of customers over there. It just involves us loading up our tools onto a ferry, usually just load them into a big box and take them over there. But overall, it's pretty rare. Most of the HVAC companies and technicians stick to their own island and handle their clientele on the island. So.
All right, so let's get into some of the technical stuff. You think you said it was 80% smart multi or PUMI that you're working on this. So how do you approach a service call?
So if we're talking PUMI or smart multi, might get called out for no cooling or poor cooling or something like that. First thing I'm going to do is, ask the customer questions, what's going on. And then really it's just all about being observant, just, looking, listening. I might go to the outdoor unit and see if I have power in certain areas. Do I have MNet voltage? Do I have line voltage first? Do I have MNet voltage? That sort of thing. And and then, basically going to get to a point where, okay, is this an electrical issue or is this a refrigerant issue or is this like an airflow issue? Out here, we deal with a lot of coil issues. Evaporator coil leaks are very, very common out here across the board in all brands. Personally, I'd say Mitsubishi probably has the best track record. Their coils handle the elements out here the best. But
we did not pay you to say that.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. But yeah, so if I'm looking at a possible low charge situation on a PUMI or any city multi, obviously, looking at things like discharge temperature. What's a compressor discharge temperature? Is it running high? Over 220, 220. Really, I get suspicious anytime I see it over 200. I forget what the official number is that it'll actually trigger an error code. Just keeping your eyes open and, looking at the equipment. We also deal with a lot of gecko-related issues out here. They get into the circuit boards. They cause a lot of problems. If I could put a number on, a dollar number on the amount of circuit boards I've replaced because of geckos, I'm sure it would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's crazy the amount of damage they do.
They like that heat in there to go and chill out. The power boards put out some heat on those cold nights, and that's probably why they're getting in there too. So we don't deal with that here. I talk about them all the time. We deal with rodents up here in the Northeast.
And what about snakes? I know in some parts of the country they get snakes in the equipment. You guys deal with snakes at all in Hawaii?
There are 0 snakes in the state of Hawaii.
I love that.
Zero snakes.
What about spiders?
Wow.
Are there 0 spiders? Because if there are 0 spiders, snakes, I'm moving.
There are spiders, not too many that I'd be afraid of. I guess the thing that people get freaked out the most about, we have pretty big centipedes out here, and they can get into the units as well and cause problems. Although that's a little more rare. Usually it's geckos, but the centipedes out here can be a little bit terrifying for some people.
All right, so Nick, let's talk about the dip switches. So the live data. I know we've talked before, and you prefer the live data versus maintenance tool. Tell us why.
Well, in some cases, not all. I like the live data because it gives you, basically an up to the second look at what the system is doing. And there are so many data points that you can gather from, more actually, I believe, than what is given in maintenance tool. There are just a ton of data points. Obviously high pressure and low pressure are two of the big ones. Compressor discharge temperature. The other day I was working on a piece of equipment and I thought this was fascinating. I was watching the LEV position of one of the indoor units and watching it change, reacting to the system demands. And I just thought that was, it wasn't changing a lot, but it was just really cool to see that how the system sort of regulates itself and, for refrigerant flow, and just, it's a pretty cool tool, I think.
Now, have you ever gotten into function settings with the dip switches, like doing a test run, going through the function setting side?
A couple of times, not a whole lot. When I typically do test run, I'm doing it with maintenance tool. I'm sending that command through maintenance tool. Yeah. I do know that there is a way to do that with the dip switches, and I have done it before, but I don't have it committed in memory. I kind of wish I did, but
yeah. So that's actually one of my favorite things to do, because maintenance tool, to actually initiate a start run with maintenance tool, it takes a couple minutes, right? You got to do your address search. That takes a minute or two. Then you got to go into your monitor data, then drive your ICs. If you can do those dip switches, what I always tell contractors in training is you set those dip switches, get that test run going, then start hooking up your maintenance tool. By the time you get on there, the system's probably already been running for 5-10 minutes. By the time you're actually looking at that data, it just kind of speeds up the process a little.
We're at the mercy of, when we're using maintenance tool, we're at the mercy of that every data being refreshed every minute. By using the SW4 dip switch on the city multi equipment, or it would be SW1 on smart multi, you're getting real-time information. And that's super useful with pressures, with, like you said, LEV positions. And there's just a ton of different things you can look up with the dip switches, and I haven't tapped into all of them. There's just so much. But you can see voltages, amperages, and it just goes on and on and on.
So it's been
Error history.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I've actually done this. So I just want to make sure I remember it correctly. So if I've got a City Multi, an R2 or a Y series, I go to SW4 and I put it in the on position, right?
No, you just go in the service manual and look up your configuration of dip switches for high pressure, low pressure.
No, but I'm talking about to get into that function, to be able to move the data.
You don't
All
just
you
to
have
look
to
at
do
live
is set
data
SW4.
is just flip the dip switch, SW4 dip switch bank to whatever settings. Now you're thinking of function settings.
Yes, I'm thinking of function settings.
There-
All right.
There's a couple of things you got to.
That's 610.
Okay, that's right. Okay, see, this has been a while. That's why you guys.
Going to get you back in the classroom. Paul.
I fail.
Yeah,
All right.
seriously.
So I go to the SW4, and now it's just depending on which switches I turn on, it's going to give me certain data. And I seem to remember pretty clearly if I put on switch 2, 4, 5, and 6, if I switch those, I'm getting a high pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's written it's written down in front of me. Otherwise,
Oh, okay. Thank God for the notes.
Yeah, I cheated. All right. So, what are some of the key things you're looking for, Nick? So, let's high pressure. You go to SW1 on the Smart Multi or Plumi, SW4 on the Y series. You go 2, 4, 5, and 6. You flip those switches, and you got your high pressure reading there on the LED. So, what are some of the other things you're looking for?
Well, low pressure is a big one. Compressor discharge temperature is a big one.
TH4.
Yep. I might want to look at what my outdoor unit subcooling is, another tool to help me determine if possible charge-related issue. I may want to look at what the state of some of my indoor units might be. Are they in cooling? Are they, what mode are they in? And there is a way to do that as well. I don't remember the actual dip switch setting, but there is a way to get that through the dip switches. And then, like I was talking about earlier, things like LEV position is kind of a neat thing to look at. There's just so many data points that you can get from that live data from those dip switches. It can be really helpful.
Yeah, some of the ones I also, just to add in, is your error history, right? So if you got a City Multi, you can hook up maintenance tool, look up your malfunction log. It'll show the last 10 errors. Well, let's say it's an outdoor unit on the roof and you left your laptop in the van. You're going to go all the way back down to grab your laptop, bring it all the way back up and hook up? Or are you just going to turn on your 1, 2, and 4 on your smart multis to look at the abnormalities, or just there was even just to see, okay, what was the last thing that was going on, especially on a service call?
So what are you dealing with the corrosion side of things, being on the ocean? Talked about indoor coils. What about outdoor coils?
Yeah, glad you bring that up. Out here, salt air, obviously, big thing. Primarily when it comes to coil replacements, it's indoor coils. Actually, lately we've been dealing with a few more outdoor coil issues. But my biggest thing, can't always do this, but when placing an outdoor unit, is it's always better to have the outdoor unit. I mean, when you're talking about here on Maui, it's always better to have the outdoor unit on the leeward side of the house, right? You don't want the unit to be on the side of the house that catches all the wind, right? I tell customers all the time, if you can stand next to your outdoor unit and see the ocean, oh, that might be good for you, but that's not good for the unit. It's your unit's gonna suffer for that. Unit placement is a big thing, trying to avoid, direct wind and kind of that salt air, that ocean air. But even with that, it's only a matter of time that, believe it or not, the average lifespan of an AC unit here on Maui is about 7 to 10 years, especially on the outdoors. They don't last that long. Some will last longer than that if they're used sparingly. Yeah, it's corrosion's a big thing.
Anytime you have the ocean, there are certain things that you can do that'll delay it, but the ocean, nature is nature, and that ocean's pretty corrosive.
Yeah, it's unforgiving.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
I was actually going to ask, I've had some guys who are on the Cape that come to our training center in Boston, and they mentioned that they'll sometimes, I guess there's a third-party recoating spray that sometimes they'll use that on their units, that are especially ones on the rooftops. They'll recoat those every other PM or something. I was curious if you guys do anything like that down there.
Glad you brought that up, Bryn. Yeah, absolutely. We use a product out here supplied by our local distributor, AC Warehouse, called Action Clear, and it's actually made, I think, by an Australian company. We will use that to coat basically all of our indoor, anytime we do a coil change out, the new coil will also always get a coating of that stuff. And then in some cases, if we feel like the outdoor unit's going to be in an area where it's going to get a lot of exposure to salt air, we'll go ahead and hit that outdoor coil as well with that. Now, you can actually, there are companies here in Hawaii that they'll treat the unit like a car, right? They're going to put it in a paint booth. They're going to strip it down and coat every, prep it and do all that stuff. But as far as, us out in the field, if we don't have that available to us, or if it's like a coil change out where the customer's not going to pay an extra $500 to do that big process, we do have the spray cans, and it is rated. It has a minimal effect on heat transfer. So it's pretty good stuff.
So I've never been to Hawaii. Are there any areas in Hawaii where you need heat at any time for anything? What's the coldest it ever gets there?
Good question. So higher elevation. So early on, actually previous company I worked for, we did a lot of work in the what's called the upcountry area here on Maui. And basically that area is anywhere above about 1,500 feet elevation. So where I live is actually in that area. I'm at about 1,600 feet elevation. But once you get up into about the 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 foot elevation areas, yes, there are customers. I had probably somewhere on the order of maybe 200 or 300 people with gas furnaces up there.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so on the coldest mornings, like maybe January or February, it might get down to 45 degrees up there, and so they're using that. They're not using it all day, obviously. Once it gets to about 10, 11 o'clock in the day, it heats up to about 75, 80 degrees. But yeah, early mornings, it can get down to 45 degrees. And if you go all the way to the summit, which is 10,000 feet, that can actually get down below freezing. It can actually snow up there. So yeah.
Wow. See, I asked some dumb questions. I thought that one was going to be one of them, but it wasn't. So if you have a Mitsubishi system, VRF or residential M&P, are you dealing with any supplemental heat using CN24 or any of our backup heat?
Not really. It just doesn't get cold enough, I believe, in my opinion, to utilize that. Although I will say currently we don't have a ton of those, but my goal, we're trying to actually go to some of these gas furnace customers and get them switched over to Mitsubishi heat pumps just for, efficiency reasons.
Right.
The cost of gas, liquefied propane out here. We don't have natural gas out here. We use liquefied propane, but it's just super expensive. And so running a Mitsubishi heat pump is just much more economical. So
now, I wanted to talk about if you were involved or how Hawaii experienced those terrible fires, and were you out there servicing, taking care of any of that aftermath from those fires? Were you near them at all, or how did that affect you and your job and whatnot?
Yeah. So there were a number of fires on Maui. The biggest and by far the worst one was in the town of Lahaina. It pretty much destroyed that town. We had, I'm not sure the exact number, but we probably had about maybe a dozen, maybe a couple dozen customers in the affected area. Yeah, it did not affect, well, I mean, in terms of my family, my home, did not affect me personally. There was a fire in upcountry Maui that we were able to see on the morning of August 8th. We could see the smoke, but fortunately we were upwind of that. But as far as how it has affected me, my wife works in the tourism industry, and so obviously that's a big thing. Tourism has dropped off a bit since the fires, but there are a lot of things going on. I mean, those fires, they sort of exposed a lot of issues that were already there, and a lot of people are still suffering every day. People living in hotel rooms, people without homes at all. So, yeah, I'm very lucky and fortunate it didn't affect me, because there's a lot of people that it just devastated their lives. I mean, a lot of people lost their lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
A lot of people never found, even still.
Right.
Yeah. It was horrible watching it on the news. I can't imagine how much more worse it is actually being there and witnessing it. So our hearts go out to you and everybody else who was affected for that. But anyway, let's lighten it up a little bit more. So.
What I want to know is, are you guys using sheet metal ductwork or are you using fiberboard?
So, it's probably about 90% fiberboard out here. Sheet metal, I wish it was all sheet metal, but the problem is that there are a lot of small companies out here that don't have sheet metal shops, right? So fiberboard is it's an economical, easy way to put systems together. Not always the best, not always the most comfortable to work with, but it just works in a lot of situations.
Right. Yeah, that was big in the early 90s when I was in the trade, and I did quite a bit of it. It's no fun to install.
It should
fun to install at all.
It should be outlawed. Anyway, my opinion. Nick, I know you got to get going to work soon, and I had a question, and it just totally gone. It's just I was going to ask you something, and it's gone. Gone, gone.
Well, Paul, I do want to mention before we wrap it up, because this is something that I wanted to put out there. I just appreciate that you guys have this podcast. I also very much appreciate all of the training that Mitsubishi makes available to the contractors and technicians out in the field. It is so amazing to have a manufacturer that cares about the technician as much as Mitsubishi does. I mean, the amount of information that you guys make available through My Link Drive and through your training courses and everything, it's really what made me so passionate about Mitsubishi. Because with other manufacturers, I mean, I don't know if it's just something about keeping the data close to the vest or what it is, but they just don't put the information out there the way that Mitsubishi does. And I just want to say to you guys and to everybody who works for Mitsubishi how much I appreciate that. And I think that a lot of technicians would agree with me. It's truly amazing. And I hats off to Mitsubishi and all you guys for all of the training and information that you make available.
That's great to hear, Nick. Being a former service tech, and I've worked on a lot of different brands, I know where you're coming from, because I've called tech support with some manufacturers, and you'd be lucky if you got somebody, whereas you call some other manufacturers and someone answers the phone right away. It's extremely helpful. And it blew my mind coming to work for Mitsubishi, the amount of information that we give out to the service techs out there, the installing techs. We make it available on a website with no login, right? We have an amazing tech support team to answer these calls. We wish we could answer them faster, and we're getting into our busy season now, and it's just some techs get put on hold and everything else, but you always have that ability to go onto mylinkdrive.com and download the manuals, videos. You can watch videos, and like you said, training. One of our DSGs in Hawaii, Buddha.
Ryan Suda, we call him Buddha.
Buddha.
So now, do you know Ryan at all?
I do. Right. We don't call him Ryan. We call him Buddha.
Yep.
Buddha's a great guy. He's a fantastic DSG. Helps me out with stuff all the time, and I mean, it's just, he's always available. We usually, text him or email him or, call him. And he deals with a lot, because he covers, it's one DSG, he covers the entire state, so he's got to deal with, I don't know how many companies total, but it's a lot, and so, but he's always makes himself available, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. And, I really enjoy working with Buddha.
Yeah, Buddha's a great guy. I'll tell you something. You were talking about the ahi and the raw and everything else, and I was with him in California, and I was going to order that, and I said, I don't want it raw. Give it to me cooked. I'm not eating that junk raw. And he convinced me. He goes, Paul, you just eat this. Just try it. If you don't like it, I'll pay for it. So, and I tried it and I loved it. So it was a good bit of it. And I was going to ask you, because you mentioned earlier that you're the guy that people call when they can't figure it out. And I was wondering who you call, and I suspect it's Buddha.
It is Buddha. Buddha's my first line. He's who I'm going to when I encounter a problem that I can't figure out. And if Buddha can't figure it out, then we're calling Sawani.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I want to get back to the kind words that you said about us and our information, make it available. And I'm very fortunate. I lead a training department, and I think I have the best department and the best group of people in the whole company. And I'm not just saying that because Steve and Bryn are here. I really believe it. But our training team, our instructors, our tech support, our service guys are all former techs. We've all been out in the van. We know what it's like. And I try to tell the guys, I don't even have to tell them. It's sort of what we do when we're putting training together. We want to put ourselves in the shoes of the technician that's going to consume that training. And what do they need? So it's nice to hear that you say those kind words, because it's what we try to do every day that we're here. So thank you for that.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Paul, I just want to let you know that if we do ever get an official training center out in Hawaii, I volunteer myself to man that one.
Oh, Buddha actually wants me to come down and do a high level. And he made it a point to tell me I want a high level advanced city multi-class, because these guys are just
deep level.
Okay.
Yes, because these guys are, I guess, are just like really wicked smart, right?
Okay, so you can go to Hawaii. We'll send Bryn to Alaska in February.
We'll send Bryn to Guam.
Nick, I know you have to go to work, so thank you for joining us. Any last words before you go?
Well, just keep doing what you guys are doing. It's just really, really great to listen to the podcast every week. It used to be once every 2 weeks, and you guys made it every week, and it just made me so
awesome.
so happy about that. But just please keep doing what you guys are doing, and to everybody at Mitsubishi. Thank you guys for making really what I think is the best best HVAC product in the world. And, I keep supporting your contractors and your technicians, like with this Diamond Elite Technician program that you just recently started, which we didn't talk about that, but I'm really excited about that as well.
Yeah, well, thanks. And Nick, I just want to apologize because I've made fun of you. I've said some things about you, being crazy. I question your mental status, and your ability to discern reality from fantasy. I just want to say I've said all those things behind your back now that you're here. Now I know it's confirmed. You really are crazy.
It feels exactly the same.
You're the only fan that we have. I'm sorry, go ahead.
If I had to be made fun of by one person, and I'm happy with it being you, Paul. It's all good.
Oh, it's what I.
And if you're going to be made fun of by someone, it's going to be Paul.
Yeah,
so
It's going to be Paul.
True.
Yeah.
It's what I do. So, Nick, you actually we mentioned this. You were the first one to email us, and I just want people to know. METUS Tech Show at hvac.mea.com is how you email us. And if you look at the show notes on your phone, just above the description of the episode, there's a little thing that said, send us a text. You were the first one to do that too. And literally within like 15 minutes of me hitting that button to activate that, you're the one that texted us. So feel free to send us a text. Not you, Nick, but real people. Feel free to send us a text if you have any comments that you want to make. And Nick, I hope that we can meet someday in person. I look forward to that. And I look forward to your next email, and I'm looking forward to this show and seeing what people think, and seeing what your boss thinks too. So
and if I head out there and do some training, I will reach out to you, Nick, and we'll get you into that class. You can hang out and check that out.
Just make sure you bring some poi.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about poi. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
if you have to let it sit out for a few, I just don't know. But
you don't have to let it sit out, but yeah.
Does it get mixed with other things?
Some people will put sugar in it, believe it or not. That's probably offensive to a lot of people, but But it, it probably takes a little bit of the edge off the flavor. But yeah, no, I like it traditional. I just get the bag, mix it with a little bit of water, have my ahi poke on the side, and yeah, just enjoy it.
All right, good. Nick, thank you again for joining us. It was truly a pleasure having you on.
Thank you guys.
See you on the
It was an
next
honor
one.
being on with you guys. Yep.